Hi everyone, and welcome to our tutorial on solving quadratic word problems. As we go through these questions, there are 3 of them. Please feel free to pause the video or rewind as much as you need to understand the materials that are being given. And if you have any other questions about what was presented, please send me a pager message or join me in the AC classroom. So the first question we have today is a rectangular pen being built along the side of a barn to house new calves. Find the maximum area that can be enclosed with 80 meters of fencing if the barn is one side of the pen. Now, to get a quadratic equation out of this, it looks like it's going to take a little bit of work because there's only one number that's given. So the first thing I would recommend that you do is to draw a picture of the situation. So it says that there's a barn and that you're going to construct a fence using the barn as one side of the enclosure, and you have 80 meters of fencing. So I don't know anything about the length and width, but I do know that the width could be represented by x. And if I have 80 meters of fencing altogether and I've used up 2 x's of that length for the widths, then I have 80 minus 2x left for the other side of the fence. So did you catch that? If I've ever used 2 x's there and there, and I only have 80 meters total to work with, what I have left is 80 meters subtract whatever I used for those 2 x's. At this point, I'm looking for the maximum area. So I have to come up with an equation for area. Area is the length times width. The length of my barn, according to my diagram up here, is 80 minus 2x, and my width is x. So if I simplify that and get rid of the brackets, I have a quadratic equation. And I'm just going to rearrange that so that it's in standard form with the x squared term first. Now that I have my quadratic equation, what am I supposed to do with it? According to my question, it's asking me for maximum area. If you see the words maximum or minimum in a question on a quadratic equation, that means I need to find the vertex. So this equation, it's got a negative for my a value, which means it's going to be a quadratic that looks something like this. So I'm looking for that maximum point. To find the vertex, to find the x value, we go minus b divided by 2a. And remember that this is my a, this is my b, and c is as if you've got a 0 there. So minus b, so that's minus 80 over 2 times a, 2 times minus 2. So minus 80 over minus 4, which gives us 80 divided by 4 gives us 20. And negative negative makes a positive. So my x value for the vertex is 20. I still haven't found my maximum yet because the maximum occurs with the y value. So I have to go back to my equation, find my area using the x value that I just found. So 20 squared plus 80 times 20 minus 2 times 400 plus 1600 so I get 800 for an answer there. So the maximum area is 800 and my units were meters and it's area, so it's meters squared. when the width of the pen is 20 meters. So that would give us 20 meters for there, 20 meters for here, and 80 subtract 2 times 20 gives me 40 meters for there. So 20, 40, and 20 gives me 80 meters of fence that I needed to solve this question. So again, once I've got my quadratic equation, you have to figure out what you're doing with that equation, and this one's asking you for a maximum. Let's move on to question 2. Question 2 says to find two consecutive odd whole numbers with the condition that the sum of their squares is 202. Again, there's only one or two numbers given to me in the question, but I need to generate a quadratic equation for this. Consecutive odd whole numbers. Consecutive means side by side. So if I was counting, it would be like 1 and 3 or 5 and 7. Two whole numbers that are odd and next to each other. So if I say my first number to be x, my second number would be x plus 2. And if you look at this, if this is my x, this is x plus 2 more. If this is my x, this is x plus 2 more. It doesn't feel right putting a 2 there when you're talking about odd numbers, but if you think about it, a concrete example of it, that's why you need to put the 2 in there, because each odd number is 2 more than the one before it. So the sum means I'm adding, of their squares is 202. So my equation, where y is the sum of the squares, so that would be x squared plus x plus 2 squared. So to simplify that and get rid of the brackets, use FOIL. So I've got 2x squared plus 4x plus 4. Now what do I need to do with this quadratic? Well, it's saying I want to find the values for x, the numbers, the consecutive odd numbers, where the sum of their squares is 202. So that means I take and put 202 in for my sum. And I'm solving for x, which means my equation has to equal 0. And 4 subtract the 202 that comes across is 198. At this point, I'm solving a quadratic equation for x. That means I need to use the quadratic formula. And that's x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So I get minus 4 plus or minus b squared, so 4 squared is 16, minus 4 times a is 2, times c is negative 198. Extend my root sign. And that's all divided by 2 times 2. So to simplify that, I have to work out some stuff inside this root sign. 4 times 2 times 198 is 1584. Negative negative makes a positive, and on the bottom I'm going to have a 4. When I add those two numbers, I get a number, I get 1600. And 1600 is a perfect square. It gives you 40. So that means I have minus 4 plus 40 over 4, and I have minus 4 subtract 40 over 4. So I get negative, or get positive, sorry, 36 over 4 or 9. And here I get negative 44 over 4 or negative 11. Now, if you go back to your question, we've got two possible answers here that will work for us. So it's either 9 or negative 11. But when you go back to the beginning, it says you want two whole numbers. Whole numbers are greater than 0, so I cannot have the negative 11. That's what's known as an extraneous root, because it's an extra root that I don't need. So really, my x value is 9. So x equals 9 and x plus 2 equals 11 are the two numbers. So in this case, I wanted to solve for x. To do that, I need the quadratic formula. You get two possible answers, and when you get to the bottom, you have to go back to the beginning and see which one of those two numbers makes the most sense, or which one of those two numbers doesn't make any sense at all. Usually, one of the roots will be extraneous. Let's move on to question 3. So question 3 says, Mark's Rent-A-Whirl rents 250 cars per week at $30 per day. For each $1 increase in the cost of renting, 5 fewer cars are rented. What rate should Mark charge so he has the maximum income, and what is the maximum income? So we need a quadratic equation out of this information. So the first thing we need to realize that in order to figure out income, I have to multiply the number of cars that I sell by how much I'm making on each of those cars. So right now, my income is 250 cars times $30 each, or $7,500 per month. And he wants to increase his rates so that he can get the maximum amount of income possible. Because when you're selling stuff, it reaches a point where it's too expensive and people don't want to do it anymore. So there has to be a maximum point somewhere. So we have to evaluate our variables. So let x equal the cost increase. That means the cost of the cars for the customer will be $30 plus whatever we're increasing. The number of cars then becomes 250, and remember we lose customers if we raise the price, so 250 minus five people for every dollar of increase. So let's go over that again. X is the cost increase, so my cost becomes $30 plus whatever I'm increasing it by. And then the number of cars becomes 250 minus 5 cars per increase. So to get my income, which is Y, I should have defined that up top. So Y is going to be the cost, 30 plus X times the number that I sell, 250 minus 5X. And I'll simplify that. And put it in standard form. So now that I have my equation, I got to look back to see what I'm being asked for. And it says, what rate should he charge so he has the maximum, keyword, income? Remember, maximum or minimum means I need to find the vertex. So to find the x value for that, it's minus b over 2a. And my equation down below here has a, b, C values as it is written. So minus B, so negative 100, divided by 2A, 2 times minus 5, so negative 100 over negative 10, or 10. So this means I should increase my cost by $10 a car to make my maximum. So what is the maximum? I have to find my Y value. So minus 5 times 10 squared plus 100 times 10 plus 7,500. So minus 5 times 100 is minus 500 plus 1,000 plus 7,500 gives us 8,000. So my final answer for this, for both of them, is Mark should charge, and the increase is $10, and he was charging $30, so he should charge $40 per car to make the $8,000 maximum. So I hope this video has helped you figure out some things with the quadratic word problems. You have to look at the question, you have to figure out a way to represent that information, and you need to come up with a quadratic equation. After that, you're either solving for x or you're solving for the vertex. So if you have any further questions, as I said before, please send me a pager message or join me in AC. Have a great day.